Well, hello ladies and gentlemen. This video is going to be a kind of a potpourri. You'll see a lot of different things talked about here. Probably take a little bit of time. I'm going to try not to rehash things that you can get elsewhere. I might mention them in passing here, but I just want to basically touch on it, and I'll try to move on to the really important things that I think are important. So anyway, the number one thing, the reason why I'm on the West Coast right now, you know, there are a lot of people that are studying this radiation thing from Fukushima. I'm not going to give you all the details I'm finding out on that, other than to say this. They keep wanting to say that, you know, normal background radiation. They keep talking about that. Sorry about the wind, it is a little bit windy. Without really explaining that, you know, normal background radiation has been going up since the 50s, okay? And you can get different radiation depending upon your altitude. People that are flying in airplanes, certainly, you know, astronauts, or after rain or precipitation, you can get radon, you know, and levels will go up for a short time and then it'll drop back down. The important thing to realize, and this is where I wanted to cover this, background radiation has been going up for a long time. So to keep saying that things are normal and that it's what is it based on normal? Right now is normal. Okay, let's say that back in the 50s, before they started all the testing, it was 5% or 5 counts per minute. And I'm saying that's probably a little low, but just to give you an example, 5 counts per minute. That was normal background radiation. Well, now they want to call normal 30 counts per minute. You see what's happening here? It's the same thing with the EPA raising the danger or the safe levels from, say, this level here to this level up here, raising it 100 or 1,000 times so that they don't have to address the fact that they've got a problem or to alert you. Well, that was the first thing I wanted to say. Background radiation levels that are considered normal keep rising, and that's bad in and of itself. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing is that, again, you know, what people forget is it's one thing to be exposed for a short period of time and then not be exposed for a long period of time. But even that's cumulative. Okay, so there are three things you have to be concerned about with radiation. I want to just talk about this real quick and then I'll move on. The fact is that higher levels of radiation are being found in the northern hemisphere, and especially on the west coast right now primarily along the seashore, okay? But there is a lot of stuff happening inland, especially with cesium-137. But, you know, I don't want to get everybody sidetracked on specifics. I just want to say that it is a problem. We've got to stop saying that it's not a problem. In the short term and especially in the long term for the survival of the human species, this is a problem, okay? And Fukushima is not going to go away. It's getting worse by the day. Three things. You have to be concerned with the time of exposure, how long you're exposed to something. I mean, if you're a visitor to an area that's high, let's say it's reading 500 counts per minute, okay, and you're there for only a short time, it's probably not going to be a big deal. But if you're there day after day after day after month after month after year, yes, there is going to be an accumulation, a bioaccumulation that's going to occur. Radiation is cumulative, so time of exposure is important. The distance you are from the material that's causing the radiation. You know, alpha particles are very short distance. They can't even penetrate through a piece of paper or thin clothing. Beta particles, heavy clothing stops them. Distance. We're talking about alpha particles, maybe a foot, a couple feet at the most, inches usually. Beta particles, a few feet, a few yards possibly. Gamma radiation, a whole other thing though. And every time you have a breakdown, of course, of nuclear material where it's been unstable and it releases these particles, a gamma ray is released as well. Gamma rays are very penetrating, and you need concrete, something like that, to stop them, okay? All of those things are dangerous depending upon your distance, and gamma rays can go for quite a distance, all right? So distance is a factor. How far are you away? And that's why everybody's saying, well, Fukushima is no big deal because it's thousands of miles away. No, but it's carrying that, you know, the wind currents, the ocean currents and things are bringing that stuff here. And some of those things have half-lives of thousands, if not millions of years. Okay, it's just something to keep in mind. And finally, I kind of mentioned already, the third thing is shielding. You know, from alpha particles, thin pieces of paper, things like that, beta particles, heavy clothing, gamma rays, concrete. You know, it depends upon the shielding. So those three things you take into consideration, all right? Always remembering that the dose you get today is your dose that you are going to be until you get your next dose. In other words, it's cumulative. It's not like it goes away through excretion. A little bit of it does, but the actual dosage that you receive never goes away. You're at that dosage. And that's why people talk about a lifetime dose. And that is a technical term. So again, I want you to remember that time of exposure, distance, and shielding are important. But the accumulation, the cumulative effect of the radiation never goes away, and that's what can make you sick in the end. I've already talked about the USS Ronald Reagan, and I want to go ahead and move along here, but I do want to mention again that this is not something that we can ignore. This is a serious, this could end up in an extinction level event if we don't correct this thing. Nuclear energy is far more dangerous than coal plants, CO2. You know, plants need CO2. They don't need radiation, not the kind that we're spewing out. They need it from the sun for photosynthesis. So Einstein said, basically, and I've talked about this before, using nuclear energy to boil water is really stupid. Okay, it's a bad idea. But I wanted to bring that up because I think it's really important as to where we are. The USA Today brought out a few weeks ago that we're losing Iraq, and I just wanted to bring this up. You know, if the American people look at what we're doing, every time we get involved in something, we make it worse than what it was. You already know how I feel about Al-Qaeda, about all of these. Basically, Al-Qaeda is now the name of any group that opposes the Western agenda. So we've got some problems here, and we have to realize the magnitude of this and address it head on. And you're going to hear me talk about some of that during this video here in different places. You know, I talk a lot about preparing and about doing things, and we're going to jump into a little spiritual thing here. We talk about preparing for, you know, the inevitabilities, you know, whether it be you lose your job or there's an earthquake or there's a man-made catastrophe, whatever. But in reality, what the scriptures talk about is that there will be a famine in the last days, not so much for food, but a famine for the Word of God. That people will be so intent on obtaining their pleasures and pursuing those that they won't think about the things of God, about consciousness, about caring for our fellow man, about love, liberty, life, those things that you hear me talk about all the time. So there may not be a worldwide, you know, famine of food. But regardless, you still need to be prepared for all eventualities. And as I've always said, the most important thing is that you are aware, that you're conscious of what's happening in the world, that you are an observer, because that mere action of observing, of keeping aware of what's happening, is an issue in keeping it under control. Like the situation you're going to hear me talk about in a little while about a tooth. Okay? All right. I hope it's not too long this time. I'm in San Diego right now. We're finishing up on some of the things that we've been working on, and like I said, I'm not going to give. There's all kinds of other information out there. I just wanted to see this for myself, but I hope that some of the sightseeing that I give you is of some kind of value as well. You know, and I'm going to do something else here too. I'm going to show you a little bit of San Diego. I have two favorite cities in the world. Venice is one and San Diego is the other. Not a lot of it, but maybe some of the harbor area and some of the downtown. I think you'll enjoy it. I really love this place. So I will show you a little bit. Give us something else to do, kind of like going out to the forest or the desert or whatever, but a little different this time. Making a number of these on different dates, as I've already said, so I'm not going to give the date that I'm actually recording it because there's so much going on here that I thought it would be better just to leave that out. So whatever date it shows up is the date that I'm posting it. I had to bring up something today. It's not something new that we haven't talked about before, but kind of a further definition of the situation. You know, we have these what the courts and what the DHS, the Border Patrol, calls the Constitution-free zone. Nothing like that is supposed to exist. The government's right to govern is based upon the fact that the people gave it certain enumerated powers. And one of those powers is that it is to guarantee a constitutional form of government. In other words, you can't just suspend the Constitution at your will. As a matter of fact, the charter that the people gave the government insists that they aren't giving us any rights because these are God-given rights that are ours, but that the government must protect or guarantee that we can exercise those rights. And if they suspend that for any reason, under any pretext, then that is a violation of a contract, and the government is now illegitimate. I hope that makes sense. You know, Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War. But the writ of habeas corpus was written into the Constitution actually prior to the Bill of Rights. Isn't that interesting? So the Bill of Rights actually trumps that part of habeas corpus, because what does it say in Amendment 4? That you will be secure in your person and in your possessions. All right? So habeas corpus, to be suspended like that, has to be balanced against the 4th and 5th Amendments as well. And the 1st, and the 2nd, of course, all of them. Anyway, that was my thought on that today. So what am I telling the United States government as it is presently constituted? That you are an illegal, illicit government that has broken its contract with the people, and therefore you have no legitimate authority. That's really what it comes down to. Them's are fighting words, I know. I noticed that Iraq is back in the news. Actually, it never left, of course. You know, Afghanistan, they're saying, oh, we need another 10 years. You know, once they get into these things, they don't want to give them up. Not unless the public really objects. Sorry about moving the camera there. I think if you really look at the history of this and understand what Western intelligence services, indeed the Western agenda is, and I hate to say that because we were supposed to be the bastion of liberty and life and guaranteeing, standing up for liberty and peace, but we've been usurped. As many commentators say, our government's been hijacked by international banking interests, the New World Order, if you wish, whatever, for money. It's all about money and power, and money really is just a tool to fool us into giving them power. It's really all that is, for them gaining it. But I diverge again. This thing with Iraq in particular, you could see this coming years ago. First of all, Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. I think everybody knows that now. And Bush tries to pretend that, he was innocent and all that they just went with the information they had and, that kind of thing. But then he justifies it by saying, well, Saddam Hussein was a bad guy. And I think I've said this before. So we get rid of Saddam Hussein, and then we become Saddam Hussein and worse, or get other people in there that are worse. In other words, we make the condition worse than it was when we started. Now, part of that, of course, is this Al-Qaeda thing. Al-Qaeda is the name of any group now that is standing against the Western agenda, whatever that is. And I could go into some details on that, but I think most of us see that it's about Western hegemony and about the powers that be in the West, in particular the New World Order, banking interests, those things, taking control, because the countries that they principally go after are those that aren't using, of course, the dollar or the Western banking system. So, at any rate, Al-Qaeda in Syria. And so many people found out about that and understood it that they stood up against it. They've kept us out of it so far, but don't fool yourselves. There is a black operation going on there. We are doing something in Syria. You can bet it. Now, you know, a lot of generals were relieved over the last few years, and I noticed the list, and I won't comment on all of them, but I'm going to comment on McChrystal, Petraeus, and Valley. I want everybody to understand that these men are not good men. And some people will say, well, gee, you talked about Petraeus, you know, trying to get him to stand up. I did that to prove who he was, okay, to give him a chance to repent. Not that I thought he'd really do that. And of course he didn't. Valley worked for the Syrian rebels, okay? He's not a good guy. McChrystal, he doesn't like the Second Amendment. What are you doing fighting a war in Iraq for the liberties and the constitutional, God-given constitutional rights of the American people, and you agree that you need to take guns out of the hands of American citizens? These things are irrational, and they make no sense. If you're going to be like that, then he should never, none of those officers should have ever taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, because they were lying from the outset for their gain or whatever. So if they stand against the Constitution, that's the fruit that you can judge them by and know that they aren't who they say they are. And this Valley guy, you know, he's a plant. I know a lot of militia people and all those are looking to him because he's on this list of generals that were released. Don't you think the establishment is going to make sure that some of their own are in there to try to control things? Come on, guys. Valley was with the Syrian rebels and Al-Qaeda. Come on. Anyway, I diverged from Iraq again, didn't I? The point is here, we create these enemies. Yes, we created them. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq before we invaded. All right? And then we make them, and originally, it's like I said a long time ago, the initial people that were fighting us in Iraq after we got in there wasn't Al-Qaeda. It was the Royal Guard, it was the army that basically went underground. You know, it was a guerrilla war by Iraqi military forces, regular military forces. Unfortunately, you know, we did so many things wrong there on purpose to destabilize it that now there are all these different groups in there fighting amongst each other. Saddam Hussein liked Tito in Yugoslavia. You think I like Tito? No. You know, but look at the situation now in the Balkans. And we do the same thing to Iraq. And we do the same thing to Libya. And we do the same thing to Afghanistan. And we're going to do the same thing to Syria if we can do it. So we go in there and we destabilize these things, and we give weapons to Al-Qaeda in Libya, transfer them to Syria, and then all those weapons end up all over the place, Iraq and everywhere else. Do you see? We've got, there's only two possibilities on this, okay? Either the people that are running our military-industrial complex, and in fact leading this nation, they're either totally incompetent and don't know anything that they're doing, and no, I don't believe that, or this is all planned out to be as nasty and as evil and as horrible as it appears to be. So now we have neocons saying we need to go back into Iraq to take care of Al-Qaeda. I hope the American people understand that that's not the way to handle this. One of those days where I get pretty emphatic, don't I? Alright, well, I won't waste a whole lot of time on this today. I just wanted to bring some of that up. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of this on this road trip. I'll explain the road trip a little bit later. I guess I ought to say it this way real quick. Sorry about that. I have to insert this here. What our military-industrial complex does, and as a matter of fact, all of the Western nations, you know, Britain, United States, and I named some others, but I think that's good enough for now. What they do is they create the enemy of tomorrow so they can continue wars. I hope you understand that that's what's happening here. You know, they destabilize, yeah, you know, some of these governments aren't great, but they're sure better than what we turn them into. Show me one government where we have gone in and done anything to supposedly liberate or fix it or whatever that's turned out good. Name one. Vietnam? You going to use that one? No. No. You know, they defeated us. And it turned out real nice there compared to what it was when we were involved. Do you see what's going on here? And I'm talking about, of course, since World War II. But World War II, as far as I'm concerned, was a war instituted by the bankers as well. But that's another story. The point is, I wanted to make sure that I said that what these guys do is they destabilize an area, they create a new enemy, Al-Qaeda in this place, which is real convenient anywhere and everywhere, and they then have more enemies for tomorrow to continue the wars. Now, I want to say one more thing about Al-Qaeda here. We're always being told about how dangerous Al-Qaeda is and how dangerous Muslim extremists are. And of course now American gun owners and conservatives and Christians and all that too. But the point is this: when the government wants to hype something, I had people tell me, you're a fearmonger, you bring up these things, you get people upset and all this. The federal government of the United States corporation keeps everybody in fear of a group of people 10,000 miles away in a cave. And I've said that before. Who in the world is a fearmonger for their agenda? Our forefathers knew that our government was what we needed to keep track of and to keep an eye on and to keep a boot on. The government. Not the boot on us from the government, but our boot on them. Our chains on them. And you know what I'm saying? I'm getting hoarse here. Hi ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if the wind here is going to be a problem or maybe the background noise from the traffic, but I kind of like the spot and I just wanted to pull over for a few minutes and just say something. We spend a lot of time talking about two different parts of this opposition, the good side and the bad side, and it seems like a lot of times the bad, really overwhelms the good as far as the amount of information. So this is going to be one of those scripture study times, and I'd just like to point out a few things. Whether or not you believe in the Bible, whether you're a Christian or whatever, I think this philosophy comes across pretty strong, whether New Age or Buddhist or really anything. And even if you're an atheist, you'll recognize this, I think. When your tooth isn't hurting you, you don't think about it, right? It's not an issue. But when it starts hurting, you become aware of it, and then you can do something about it. Does that make sense? Well, I think God is doing that for our individual spirits, however you want to, perceive God to be. I think that's what's going on here. When we see sins in others, we shouldn't do it from a point of view of condemning them or judging them, but seeing that in them, then we examine to see if we find those same things in ourselves. See how you can use that? And I think I've talked about this before, but I want to take it to the next level. I want to talk about how evil the governments are and all this surveillance that's going on and the fear of the establishment, that they're afraid that mankind really might rise to their spiritual level. And so we see all of, not their spiritual level, the bad guys, but the spiritual level that mankind is destined to be. So they want to stop that because they want us to be their minions, their slaves. They want to control destiny. So I've talked about this thing with, the Tower of Babel before, that when, at least I think I mentioned it here, maybe it was somewhere else. After the flood, the story is that Nimrod and his people built the Tower of Babel for two reasons, really. One, to escape the judgments of God in case he decided to use a flood again. But more importantly, they were trying to reach where God is so that they could enter his kingdom without his approval, that they just kind of storm in. Now, however you feel about the CERN super collider that's going on in Europe right now, what's happening there, I think they're not as concerned about bringing things from the other side as they are going into the other side without going through God's program, if you know what I mean. So in other words, it's another issue of this Tower of Babel thing of trying to do it their way rather than God's program. Now, Does that mean that they shouldn't do it? No, I'm not really saying that. I'm saying it's what's in their hearts. What are they really after? And the government is the same way, these evil things in the government. When we look at what they're trying to do, they're trying to keep mankind, instead of elevating them, which is really what leaders should be doing, is elevating mankind to new levels of consciousness and understanding. They're trying to suppress it and keep that knowledge to themselves and then corrupt it. In other words, merging with the robots and the World Wide Web as the synthetic, as the man-made consciousness. God has made everything so that we are all connected, and these people don't want us to recognize that, because that takes us out of their control. So to mimic it here on Earth with the World Wide Web, or with whatever the media thing has been going on for thousands of years, it's an attempt to usurp that one consciousness that we all share. So I wanted to bring that up today and say this. Often I've said the most important thing is to be aware, to see the evil. Do what you can to prevent it, to stop it. But the real important thing is to be aware of it, because just like that bad tooth, when you become aware of it, you can do something about it, if nothing else but in yourself. And that's really what it's about anyway, raising our consciousness to that level where we are on the same consciousness level as the creator of the universe. Not as these little evil ones down here that just want to keep you into their power, which is really the definition of a devil, of a shaitan, of a Lucifer. I've often said that they've outsmarted themselves, that God kind of saw this and took the proper precautions and allowed these things to happen to wake us up, to wake his children up so that they can see. And then the division of the wheat from the tares will occur. Actually, the tares are taken out of the wheat, bundled and burned. Okay, so the message here today, when we look at all of these things, don't fear. Use it as a way to awaken your consciousness. Allow it to do that, just like that aching tooth. Okay? Don't partake in it, as far as the evil. Stand against it. Don't partake in it. Come out of the system. Don't comply. Resist. Teach the truth. Teach about freedom, liberty, love, virtue. I wanted to catch the whole area here. Yeah, what is this, Balboa? We're at Balboa.
Yep.
Across from me there is the Naval Medical Center, San Diego, probably where those sailors from the USS Ronald Reagan ended up. San Diego Bay, that bridge there goes across to Coronado. Of course, it's getting dark now. I've been playing golf with these guys here, and haven't done real well today, but it's always a lot of fun, even though you kick yourself in the rear end a lot for, kind of shots you don't want to make. They're not even shots. We're at San Diego Harbor, and you can see all these neat boats, submarines, sailboats. Water is the life of the planet. We got some bikes here, and using that to kind of traverse quickly. There's the USS Dolphin. It's a scientific research vessel. Was, of course, it's docked now. And over here is the ship from Master and Commander. It's actually anchored here, docked here at the Maritime Museum. You can see how nice that is. But back behind that there is a Russian submarine. How they got a hold of that, I'll never know. There's the ship from Master and Commander right there. And that Russian submarine is way back there. Sorry, I hit the off button. This is the Star of India. It's a huge sailing cargo vessel. It's really amazing, actually, what's involved in that. How big it is. You can see here. Pretty cool. There it is. Okay, there's the San Diego skyline. It's not quite as spectacular from here as from another few spots, but this is what I really wanted you to see. The USS Midway. This is a decommissioned aircraft carrier, but it's here. You can go and sightsee on it. And then you can see the whole harbor here, naval base there. There's a current aircraft carrier out there. It looks like getting, it's a dock for whatever reason. And destroyers coming in here right there. There's one of those destroyers right there. I think you can see it right there. It's kind of small on this particular camera, but you get the idea. And then the rest of the bay out there like that. Just a neat place. Airport's right over there. And of course you get wildlife here. There's a duck in the water. He's out there fishing. Nice little sightseeing cruise vessel here, Lord Hornblower.
Yeah, and that destroyer, that's called that's an Aegis destroyer, the one that's coming in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You can see the radar array is on the front part of the superstructure. The superstructure is the
right where the bridge is and all
exactly,
that.
Yeah, just below, actually it's just below the bridge.
We're going to show you the destroyer coming in. It's just coming around on the other side of the boat. There it is. It's an Aegis destroyer.
Yeah. Those things cost over $1 billion a copy.
Wow.
Yeah, $1 billion.
It's going to head on down the harbor here to what's called 32nd Street Naval Base area.
Arleigh Burke class.
That's really interesting. Anyway, beautiful place, beautiful water. It's like paradise here.
Yeah, it's a good shot of it.
Look at that, we got a
ship. That's a warfighter.
That is. And you got a sailboat right there. He doesn't have his sails out, but he's coming in under power so he can control it in here. And then you got that big, huge destroyer right there. Look at that. Wow, amazing. Aegis destroyer.
Arleigh class. Arleigh Burke class.
Wind in our sails here. Downtown San Diego. I didn't take you to the Gaslight District. It's a little bit rough on the bicycles. Do that down there. Okay, well, the Gaslamp District is kind of fun. This is my favorite place in all of San Diego, other than the waterfront. Little Italy. Been here a number of times. Wanted to show you the sign there. I'll take pictures of it. Here we go to this bar here called the Princess Pub and Grill. A lot of fun. So there we are, lots of Italian restaurant, all kinds of neat things here really. But this is our hangout here when we're here in San Diego. Okay, well I had to show you this. This is downtown Little Italy. I showed you that during the day today when I was running around. Now the colors on this aren't real good because this camera's really not up to night pictures, but you know, neat place, a lot of things to do. You can see that there are a lot of restaurants. It's decorated. Here's the pub that we're at tonight, of course. Princess Pub and Grill. We've got our friends over there. I'll maybe take some pictures of them just to let you know I actually do know people. So, but there's some great restaurants here. Of course, they're all basically Italian of one sort or another, but great place to be. Yeah, you know, I thought about taking some pictures of the group, but you know, guilt by association. So none of these people are like me as far as all the things I talk about. But you know, we've got some friends here, some ladies and some guys. They're professionals of different types, lawyers, doctors, nurses, bankers, a lot of interesting people. And it's just kind of a lot of fun. Of course, a bunch of retired folks as well. But anyway, just so that you know, every once in a while I have a social life. Okay, last day of our, well, not really the last day, but it's the last day I'll probably be playing golf. I've been invited to go to the the big PGA tournament next week. I might do that. This is the Bonita golf course. Really nice. It's nice and flat. I shouldn't lose too many balls here, thank goodness.